Before we begin, the name is placed on the top right side of the screen. She knew this would happen. That was the thought that came to her mind the moment she saw her small world. Her family, the Raniero house, fell into ruin. The castle gates were shattered and the walls were torn down by the invaders. Her father and brothers were already slain, and the servants inside the castle fared no better. They too were the members of the Raniero family. Now she is the only direct descendant left in Raniero. A tear slips from her eye as she thinks she knew this would happen. Not long ago, the sole heir, Arsene Eckhart of the Wolf clan, died. He had been frail since birth, and eventually passed away bedridden. However, it was revealed that Arsene's death wasn't due to illness, but rather a result of someone else's scheme. The culprit was her father, the head of the Eagle family. Before the Wolf clan heir's death, the Wolf clan had sent a marriage proposal to the Eagle family. They wished to take the daughter of the Raniero family who possessed the unique healing ability of the three clans. To heal the son of the Wolf clan heir, the compensation they offered was fair, so there was no reason for Raniero to refuse. The problem began after that. Her father promised to send a direct descendant from their family. He kept his promise, however. The one he sent was the only mutant of the three clans, while the other children of the clan had healing abilities. Her half-sister Shuval possessed a different power. She had the ability to steal another's life force. Her father sent Shuval as Arsene Eckhart's bride, to drain his life force and eliminate the heir of the Wolf clan. And eventually, the Wolf clan lost its heir, but what her father did not expect was that the entire Wolf clan would lose their reasoning. The Wolves who had lost their reason moved with only one desire: revenge. Revenge for the loss of their heir. Swift and unrelenting, they came to achieve it. Brutally, she adds. Her eyes lock onto a man shedding tears of blood, a sight so shocking it paralyzes her. A wave of disbelief washes over her as she wonders if he noticed her gaze. In a panic, she stumbles backward and flees, diving beneath her bed as if it could somehow shield her from the horrors she has just witnessed. She tells herself that they couldn't possibly have seen her. Her room is tucked away in the most isolated corner of the Raniero estate, far removed from prying eyes. Squeezing her eyes shut, she tries to block everything out, but the darkness of her eyelids offers no comfort. She reluctantly opens them again. For the first time, she thinks that it is a relief that she is considered the shame of the family. She reveals this place is really hard to find. Even the maids who have not worked here long get lost in these corridors. She's alive, but barely. With her hair turned red, she's considered the disgrace of the Raniero family. She is treated like she does not exist and is confined here, yet even when locked away, she dreams of flying under the vast open sky. Suddenly, she finds herself caught in a violent fit of coughing, unable to understand why her throat feels so raw or why it's becoming increasingly difficult to breathe. Panic surges through her as she realizes smoke is seeping into her room from the door. There's a fire. Her eyes widen in disbelief as it dawns on her. They set fire to the estate. Coughing violently, she feels beads of sweat trickle down her face. Her eyes and nose hurt so much. She realizes her human form is beginning to break down. In a sudden burst, huge red wings unfurl from her back, stretching wide. She reveals even the healing ability that the Bird clan boasts about is useless in a situation like this. They do not possess the power to heal themselves. Tears stream down her cheeks as she desperately tries to cover her mouth, but the realization hits her hard. She cannot go outside. She must not. If she goes any further, she will die for sure. And just like that, she curls into herself on the floor, resigning to her fate. And so, trapped in the flames, she inhaled the thick smoke and closed her eyes. She was only 12 years old, the same age as the heir of the Wolf clan who died a week ago. In a sprawling mansion bathed in the bright rays of the sun under a clear blue sky, a heap of blonde hair spills across the pillows. Someone is urgently insisting that she wake up. Slowly, she blinks her eyes open, and recognition washes over her like a wave. It's Adele. Adele urges her to wake up because they are going to be late. She remains frozen in shock, grappling with the surreal reality around her. Is this the afterlife? She can't help but wonder, for Adele died 2 years ago. Framed for leaking the secrets of the Raniero family, Adele was executed simply because she was her personal maid. Suddenly, the blanket is wrenched from her. Adele points out she usually wakes up early. Why is she acting like this today? She reminds her even if they hurry now, they will barely make it to lunch on time. In a swift motion, she jolts upright in bed, her heart racing as she pants for breath. Confused, she wonders what is all this? She gazes at Adele in shock, murmuring her name. Adele reminds her she has an appointment with the master today. She tells her to hurry up, glancing at her, she adds, and to change that expression on her face. However, as tears start streaming down her cheeks, she rushes to her side. Panicking, she asks if she had a bad dream. But she leaps into her arms, shocking her as she cries uncontrollably, telling her she missed her so much. She thinks to herself she is glad she could meet Adele, even if it's in the afterlife. She thinks if this were reality, she would have been scolded by Lady Kellen for collapsing without any restraint. But now there's no one left to scold her, so it doesn't matter, does it? Lady Kellen complains she could hear the commotion all the way down the hall and tells them to compose themselves. But in the next moment, a stern voice cuts through the air, demanding to know what they are doing. Adele mutters, "Lady Kellen," her voice trembling with fear. Lady Kellen complains she could hear the commotion all the way down the hall and demands they compose themselves. Adele apologizes and explains Lady Lynchy had a nightmare. The woman explodes, telling them the lady has a luncheon with the master today, so they should stop fooling around and get ready quickly. Our female protagonist is shocked because that straight posture and stiff speech, it is really Lady Kellen. Adele picks her up and tells her to come on, get ready before Lady Kellen scolds her even more. However, Lynchy wonders, but a luncheon? She hasn't been invited to one since she was 10. She demands to be let down for a moment. Adele stands a short distance away, gazing at her with concern as she continues to stare into the mirror. She asks how old is she? Adele looks puzzled before murmuring that today is her birthday and she is now exactly 7 years old. She is stunned into silence. All she can think of is if she returned into the past. On the dining table as everyone eats their meal silently, Lynchy thinks of it as a suffocating meal. After this, she is sure she has returned to the past. Her face is contorted into pain as she thinks she feels like she's going to choke. However, she tells herself she has to endure it, because in front of her father she must follow table manners. Shuval, who is busy shoving food into her mouth, jumps in fright when her father snaps at her to mind her manners at the table. Lynchy looks at her in surprise, as if it's the first time she's truly noticing her at the table, and thinks she hasn't left yet. She thinks about how Shuval Raniero, the family's anomaly, will one day gain the ability to drain others' life force, and the one who is destined to kill the heir to Eckhart. She thinks for now, though, she's just the youngest of the family, a sad 6 years old. She shifts her attention back to her father and thinks he hasn't changed. Still upholding etiquette as always, she reveals the direct descendants of the noble Bird clan are raised under the strict education by Lady Kellen from a young age. One of those teachings is table manners. The long list goes on and on. They must not bring food to their mouth too quickly. They must not eat all the food on their plate, and they must not spill any food. Even if there's a lot of food, they must not eat until they're full. She admits that etiquette is drilled into them through rigorous Spartan-like education. In her previous life, she also got scolded quite a lot, just like Shuval. She snaps out of her thoughts when her father casually remarks that she is eating with such grace today. Unable to process that, she erupts into a fit of violent coughs, convinced she is doomed. Quickly, she blurts out an apology. Lady Kellen looks furious, while a boy sitting across her giggles. However, her father simply turns his attention back to the front, leaving her surprised that he is letting it slide. Lady Kellen glares at her, probably disappointed. She can't help but think that she didn't mean for any of it to happen. It just took her by surprise that up until yesterday, Father treated her like she was invisible. The moment Father turned cold was right after she started growing red hair after shedding her fur. Red fur and feathers are a cursed symbol among all beasts. Her father locked her away in her room, and the servants thoroughly ignored her. She used to bang on the door asking if someone was out there. She believes this time, once molting starts again, she will be abandoned again, and that she will be completely erased from the Raniero family, just like in her previous life. Her eyes fill with grief as she wonders if she has to die like a dog again in this life. However, in the next moment, she decides she refuses this fate. She doesn't want to go back to the horrible past. Her father once again speaks, saying, come to think of it, the head of the Wolf clan will be visiting Raniero soon. Her head whips up in his direction, filled with shock. Her father wants the children to stay in their room. It is best if they do not run into them. A tear slips through her eyes as she tries her best to remember if the head of the Wolf clan visited around this time in past life. She thinks now that she's in doubt, it is best to ask. She asks her father, why is the head of the Wolf clan coming into Bird clan territory? She gives him her most innocent look and hopes he will dismiss the fact that she intruded. He looks at her for a moment, but then sighs and states who knows. She sighs in relief because he is answering. He then admits he is not entirely sure, but it seems there is something important he wants to relay. She realizes he is not aware yet, but Kendrick Eckhart is coming to propose a political marriage with the Bird Clan. A small plan begins to form in her mind. Perhaps she could find a way to escape Raniero. She realizes the head of the Wolf Clan has not come with a deal yet, so her father is unaware of the Wolf Clan's true intentions. She believes she just needs to outsmart this plan. Later, she sits on a sofa, deciding to reorganize her thoughts. She doesn't know if it's a side effect of regression or if it's because she's younger now, but her brain isn't working as well as before. She massages her head with her fingers while she recalls in her previous life, the head of the Eckhart family visited the estate and sent a marriage proposal, and it took 1 month for Chauvel to go to the Duke's residence. She realizes her father must have been planning to kill Arson for a long time, and as a mutant, her ability to drain life must have manifested early. She wonders if she should just ask Chauvel not to marry, but then she realizes her father would send someone regardless if it's Chauvel or not, because he received something quite good in exchange for this political marriage. The Hampton River. It's a small river between the territories of the Bird Clan and the Wolf Clan. It may be smaller than other rivers, but its location provides plenty of food and many other advantages. The two clans have been constantly at odds over this river. Therefore, the Bird Clan will not refuse this precious offer, and the whole clan will proceed with the political marriage to save his son. She thinks she just needs to change one part of her father's plan. There is a slight difference in her plan. First, accept the Wolf's clan marriage proposal, then second, send Chauvel to the Duke's residence, which is actually her in disguise. She decides she will marry Arson instead of her sister and heal him. She believes if that happens, the Wolf Clan won't lose their honor and there will be no invasion of Raniero. And she plans to ask the head of the Wolf Clan for a favor, at least until she becomes an adult. She wants protection. Even if she finishes shedding her fur at 10 years old and grows the cursed feathers, the wolves won't be able to cast her out until she becomes an adult, because she will be needed to heal Arson. And after becoming an adult, she can divorce him and live moderately in a quiet countryside village. She is confident she can cure Arson's illness. She happens to be possessing the strongest ability in her family. The thought creeps into her mind that she doesn't want to be trapped in a room where no one comes for her. She thinks she should have requested protection while being a direct descendant of the marriage. She thinks the opportunity will only come tomorrow, when the head of the Wolf Clan visits the Raniero estate in person tomorrow. She resolves to not miss tomorrow at any cost. Next day, Adele deadpans, absolutely not. Lynchy stands there with her mouth open like a fish gasping for air. She whines that she just wishes to go for a quick walk, but Adele reminds her the head did not allow it, and the head of the Eckhart family is here, so if she happens to run into him, she will definitely get into big trouble. She thinks that is the thing she has to meet him in person. She then murmurs that she is just feeling stifled. She will stay close by and pleads with her. However, not even the heavens themselves can convince Adele, much to her dismay. With no other option, she resorts to Plan B. Suddenly, she starts to whine about a stomach ache and claims she's starving. Adele reminds her just moments ago she was whining about wanting to go to the garden. She counters that she is suddenly hungry. She thinks it is not actually a lie that she's hungry. Lady Kellen had often neglected to feed her under the pretext of management. She once told her if she felt like she was going to die from hunger, only then ask for food from her, and Adele is quite weak to her starvation. She makes a puppy face and exclaims she is so hungry that she just wishes to go to the kitchen for a bit. And is it too much to ask? Adele looks totally conflicted, meaning Lynchy words are getting to her. Her puppy eyes grow bigger, if that is even possible. Suddenly, Adele exclaims that she'll grab some cookies and in the meantime, she will stay in her room. Lynchy promises to obey. Before leaving, Adele warns her once again to stay in her room, but the moment she leaves, she proceeds to do the same thing that she promised moments ago she wouldn't. She looks for an escape. She failed to go through the room, but there are still many ways to meet him. She rushes to her bed and takes out a note from under the pillow. She thinks now she has another way. Her second method is shape-shifting. In shape-shifted form, communication is only possible among the same clan. Therefore, to prepare for the possibility that they can't communicate, she needed insurance. She has written a note about wanting to meet him. She is a little wary though, unsure if they will recognize the writing. Since her body has gotten younger, it was difficult to write neatly. She barges open the window and finds his carriage still parked outside. Relief washes over her as she realizes the head of the Wolf Clan hasn't left yet. She knows she needs to hurry before Adele arrives. Without wasting another moment, she decides to slip through the window to meet the head. Generally, shapeshifting is a skill learned after the age of 10, but having returned to the past, she vividly remembers how to do it. She jumps 2 times in place, preparing for the transformation. She pleads with the divine being that this works. And to her surprise, she does it. The malted feathers of the eagle that belongs to the Raniero family. And this power in the wing joint, she successfully completed the beast transformation. However, he thinks she is a bit small though, and that is the understatement of the century. She happens to be more than just very small. She admits that actually trying beast transformation was half a risk. People usually learn to use their abilities after turning 10. Fortunately, she remembered things from her previous life which helped her succeed. Other than having trouble swinging her wings, she doesn't seem to have any issues. She has enough strength to get out of here. That is when she finds the head of Wolf Clan leaving the mansion. She tenses, thinking the conversation is already over. However, she is determined to go to him by flying away. But that is the moment when the door swings open and Adel enters announcing she bought cookies from the kitchen. Lynchy panics, thinking she returned too soon. She hurries up because if she gets caught now, it's all over. But before she can fly away, she makes eye contact with Adel, who instantly recognizes her. She flees out of there. Adel screams after her, but all Lynchy does is feel guilty about it. She thinks she did it. She succeeded though her wings are still underdeveloped, causing her to lean to one side, and the note is about to slip from her mouth. Now all she has to do is meet the leader of the Wolf Clan. As she approaches him, she realizes too late how to stop and ends up colliding with him. She has landed right in the palm of his hand. For a brief moment, she wonders if she's safely landed, but when she looks up, she meets Kendrick's confused gaze. He recognizes her by her feathers and asks if she was playing alone in the garden. She is relieved to find out that she landed safely and just wants to hand over the note. He remarks it is impressive that someone can change into a beast at such a young age. But then he gently sets her on the grass and warns her that she's still small. It is better to stay with the servants while wandering in the garden. She panics, thinking no way he's actually leaving her behind. Rushing after him, she tumbles onto his shoulder, desperate to tell him not to go. She wants to tell him she has important matters to discuss with the Lord, and she absolutely must follow the Wolf's clan. She hands him over the note. He takes it and reads it, then asks her if she wrote this note. She blushes and nods in acknowledgement. He asks her to be sure that she wishes to go to Eckhart. She makes a sound in agreement. However, she notices he looks very hesitant. She wonders why. Wasn't this what the Lord wanted? She thinks what happens if he decides not to bring her, and shall she prove her abilities to him? She decides yes, that is what she should do to prove her power. Once again she lands on his palm thinking she has such a strong ability even among the Raniero's family, so he will definitely want to take her with him. He suddenly tenses when she scratches his thumb and sees a small drop of blood. He starts to ask why, but before he can finish, she swiftly uses her powers, healing the wound instantly. She looks up at him eagerly, waiting for his reaction, wishing to know if Kendrick is tempted to take her. However, he stands rooted to the spot, frozen in shock. But the moment is interrupted by a sudden commotion. He turns to see the guards approaching, and panic floods her. They are the family's guards, and she wonders if they could have discovered she's missing already. Her mind races, realizing she needs to hide fast. In the next moment, another hand slides over her, concealing her beneath his palm. Kendrick murmurs he is not aware what she wants, but he is ready to take her. But when the guards realize they are standing face to face with the head of the Wolf Clan, they immediately step aside, making way for him. Hidden safely inside his pocket, she breathes a sigh of relief, thankful they didn't discover her. She thinks now she just needs to keep hiding like a mouse and follow them to the Wolf Mansion. But it is so stuffy in this pocket, she complains to herself. Actually, she admits, the Wolf's Lord's pocket is so big and cozy, but right now she is the one with the problem. Being in this dark place keeps reminding her of that day. The smell rising from all directions, the thick smell of blood, even the wolves sprawling around searching for her. She starts having difficulty breathing, feeling like she's back in that firestorm. She feels scared, so suffocated that she can't breathe. The moment the Lord settles into his carriage, she quickly darts out of his pocket, relieved to be inside. She takes deep breaths, trying to steady herself and catch her breath. Once she regains her composure, she's left awestruck by the lavish beauty of the carriage. She wonders to herself, since when are carriages this luxurious? She admits her father is extravagant too, always riding around in fancy carriages, but this is on another level. To her, it resembles a treasure chest with wheels. Suddenly, she shifts her weight too much onto one leg and starts to tumble, but a hand appears just in time, catching her. She finds herself staring directly into Kendrick's eyes, feeling utterly intimidated. She was in such a rush earlier that she did not realize, but this man in front of her is a wolf, a predator that could devour her in one bite. She gulps, fear lodged in her throat, and then casually remarks, "Hello, sir, lovely weather they are having." She asks herself he won't hurt her, right? And then answers herself he most likely will not harm her since she needs to treat arson. But her instincts are screaming at her to run away from this man right now. She reminds herself he is also the one who wiped out her family in her past life, but she's still scared and she wants to run away. When she trembles, he questions if that means she wants to fly away. Her eyes almost pop out as she thinks, what? No, of course not. She wonders what is the wolf's surrender signal again? She tries to do it thinking as she's doing it right. However, he takes it in the wrong way and murmurs this is in the place for her to relieve herself if she needs to. She's flabbergasted and embarrassed that he thought that. She thinks, no, absolutely no. This is so frustrating because she's unable to convey her feelings. However, he just casually states they seem to be far enough from the Raniero mansion now and perhaps it's time for them to have a chat. He tells her to feel free to transform here, it is safe. She thinks she has actually been wanting to transform for a while now, but she cannot undo it. How does she explain this? She shakes her head so he asks if she cannot undo her transformation. She nods, her head in confusion crosses his face as he comments this is troublesome. He then decides for now they should head to the mansion. She wants to follow him too, and if until then she changes her mind and wants to return, he will take her right back at any moment. She panics and exclaims absolutely not. However, he still doesn't understand and asks her if he wishes to go back. She shakes her head relentlessly. With puppy eyes, she lands on his shoulder. He wonders how long it will take to get to Eckhart from here. She has never actually been there, but they say Eckhart and Raniero are close to each other. One of the main reasons for conflict between the tribes of birds and wolves were the frequent territorial disputes at their borders. That is why controlling the Hampton River at the center of the conflict is so important. She thinks, well, that is not really her concern. For now, she should just focus on getting away from Raniero. She thinks she is finally leaving that wretched family behind. That is when the carriage stops announcing they have arrived. He gets off with her on his shoulder. Her mouth forms an O upon seeing the vast mansion before her eyes. She starts flattering her tiny wings while her soul leaves her body, captivated by its luxurious beauty. He uses his hand to steady her and tells her to hold on tight so she doesn't fall. She tells him not to worry, there won't be any mistakes like their first meeting. Just then, a deep growl catches her attention. She quickly turns, wondering what it could be, only to find a giant wolf standing before her, its expression far from welcoming. She freaks out thinking, what the heck is that? A wild wolf? She feels some things off about it. It's breathing heavily and its eyes look fierce, as if it's lost its mind. Come to think of it, she remembers reading about this in a book once. A flower whose aroma has the power to drive animals insane. Only their instincts remain unaffected. She wonders, could it have caught a whiff of that flower? If what she thinks is true, this is bad news. She thinks if a wolf that size bites a tiny bird like her, she would be in serious danger. She starts flapping her wings in panic, thinking she needs to get out of here fast. Kendrick senses her unease. He turns to the wolf and tells him that's enough. He is being rude. Lynchy is confused, wondering if the wolf clan leader controls wild wolves too. But then the wolf transforms into his human form. Perplexed, he asks what is going on here? She thinks if they knew each other all along, and this turns out not to be a wild wolf. Dragon looks confused and points out, wasn't he just supposed to talk to the bird clan and come back after? So what is that thing? He says, pointing out at the little bird. Lynchy wonders what is the big deal? Has he never seen a bird before? Endrick walks past him and casually mentions that he picked her up at the Raniero estate. Dragon freaks out and inquires they just handed her over that easily? He corrects no, he said that he just picked her up. Dragon counters picked her up. What is that supposed to mean? Kendrick complains he's just too nosy, while Lynchy thinks it means exactly what he has said, and that he picked her up when she begged him to take her to Eckhart. She guesses even the Wolf clan did not expect him to bring a bird clan number back so quickly. The butler, waiting at the entrance, appears startled as he welcomes him. All eyes land on her, and she feels a wave of nervousness under the scrutinizing stares of everyone around. The butler, Ethan, asks the master what is the meaning of this, but he just hands over the bird to him and tells him to take care of her for now, as she doesn't seem to know how to protect herself. He instructs him to wash her and feed her. She looks too skinny. And he just leaves after that. Poor Lynchy thinks she has been abandoned. The butler and the bird look at each other with suspicious looks. But she is destined to be abandoned twice in a span of 2 minutes, as the butler passes her over to one of the maids, instructing to look after her for now. He has something to discuss with the master and practically bolts out of there. Lynchy wants to complain, he cannot just leave her like this. On the other hand, Kendrick stops when Ethan calls for him. The butler requests to have just a moment. He needs to talk to him. Kendrick offers to talk inside. In his study room, he asks Ethan what did he want to talk about. He states what does he mean by what did he want to talk about. He points out the baby bird is the daughter of the Rainieros clan leader, isn't she? The butler points out secretly snatching a child who has parents is kidnapping. Kendrick agrees that he's right, but it is not what he thinks. But the butler is not ready to listen. He questions if he used force to bring her here or did he threaten her. Kendrick tries to speak, but Ethan cuts him off, saying they need to return her immediately. He doesn't know how he brought her here, but even if he did, he cannot just give her to Dragon. Kendrick shoves the note in his face and tells him to read this first. Ethan reads the note and murmurs, "What is he looking at?" Kendrick dryly says it's exactly what the note says. However, Ethan asks he did not forge this, did he? In response, he questions what does he take him for. He asks him if he heard her request to be brought to Eckhart. But Kendrick states no, he could not understand a word she said. Ethan says he should have confirmed that first. Kendrick has enough of this. He pinches his ears and points out how is he supposed to ask when she is stuck in beast form. However, Ethan then states, and what if as soon as he went to interrogate her and she ran off, would he take responsibility? Kendrick tells him to give credit where it is deserved, even if she turns out to be a spy. This works for them either way. He points out they have got Rainiero's daughter in their hands now. The butler cannot help but agree that is true. He dismisses him, stating they will talk again once her power wears off, until then to treat her well so she doesn't want to leave. He shifts in his seat, signaling that it's time for him to leave and wants him to report her condition every hour. Only when the sound of the door shutting reverberates through the silence does he let out a sigh and settle comfortably into his chair. He thinks of her as Rainiero's little bird. She possesses stronger abilities than he expected, and even in that little instant he could feel it. He has hope that the child could be able to heal his kid too. He thinks they can take their time to transform her back into a human. And once she is back, they will hear why she wanted to follow him here and to treat her to some good food, and then a little smile tugs on his lips as he thinks he'll make her his daughter-in-law. Meanwhile, Lynchy thinks if someone is talking about her. She suddenly got chills running down her spine. She instantly straightens when Ethan introduces himself. She thinks, oh, that old man, he's the butler Kendrick entrusted her to earlier. He declares he will lead her to her room. He then says to pardon his concern, but he must ask that their master did not bring her here by force, did he? She gives him a "Are you serious?" look and thinks not at all. How could he believe that about the leader of the household? But by the look on his face, she can clearly tell he doesn't seem to believe her. She wants to say, if anything, she begged him to take her along. She makes chirping sounds to tell him. He asks her if she's quite sure. She makes those sounds again, wanting to tell him it's true. Ethan's shoulders slump in relief as he mutters, thank goodness. He was worried he might have used force again. Now that she thinks about it, the Kendrick she knew in her past life was terrifying. She cannot imagine what he was like as a child. She wonders if he was proud and quiet, or maybe he was arrogant like the other noble kids his age. She snaps out of her thoughts when she arrives at her room. The butler opens the door and announces this will be her room. Shocked, she wonders, is this really her room? She finds it extravagant and pretty. She cannot help but doubt if this is really her room. All the furniture looks so luxurious and comfortable. She cannot believe she's living in such a huge room. Ethan tells her she will be staying here from now on. He also assures her to reach out to him if she needs anything else, and he will order someone to go down to the village and buy any necessary items. She makes the peep sound, wanting to tell him this is more than enough. He then places her on the bed, telling her to rest comfortably in her new bed. However, both of their gazes then turn shocked, realizing how small she appears in the vast bed. Lynchy realizes it too, thinking if she sleeps here, she is definitely going to suffocate under the blanket. She begins to bounce on the bed, sending the poor man into a tizzy as he pleads with her not to crawl under the blanket carelessly. They decide to change the blanket so she can sleep tonight. She thinks in this form she cannot even open the door handle. The butler then turns to her and asks if there's anything else that is making her uncomfortable. His question forces her to think about it, and she realizes she didn't even have a chance to eat the cookies Adele gave her. She wants to tell them she's hungry but is reluctant to say it. But she reminds herself they did ask her to let them know if she feels uncomfortable about anything. He realizes it and asks if she's hungry. She nods. He lets her know he will have a meal prepared for her right away. Inside the room, she gets a new blanket and gets a lavish meal. She wonders if she's supposed to eat all of this by herself, and she's even given a bath by the maid. She thinks to herself, this is amazing. The wolf followed Kendrick's orders faithfully and fed and bathed her. Thanks to them, she has experienced all the luxury she has never had in her life. Now that she has some free time, she decides to go over her plan again. She thinks about how she succeeded in making it to the wolf mansion as planned. I know, maybe she just has to marry Arson. This way she won't be thrown out before she comes of age. However, for her, the only issue is the nature of the wolf clan. Wolves have only one mate for life, so once they get married, it's reversible and they don't want to back out. So she asks herself, is she really planning to marry the heir of the Eckhart and take the risk of being with him throughout her life? The answer easily comes to her no. She thinks if they were married off young without their consent, they are given a chance to divorce once they come of age. Since this is a contract marriage for mutual benefit, getting a divorce later shouldn't be a problem. And that this arranged marriage is probably good news for the wolf clan too. They need the heir to recover from his illness as soon as possible. However, before she can bring that up, she needs to break out of this beast form. She then asks herself, is it okay for her to be so relaxed? She should be meeting the head of the household soon to discuss the marriage. Ever since she arrived, all she has done at the wolf mansion is eat delicious food and take a nice bath, so she would feel better if they at least told her to use her powers or something. She muses she's the daughter of a rival family, yet they're treating her like an honored guest. The maid states she must be tired from the long journey and asks if she is exhausted. She thinks everyone is so kind as back in the Raniero family, only Adele took care of her like this. Her body smells nice and she feels good. The maids smile at her, informing her they will be going now and to have a good night and rest well. As they leave and switch off the lights, darkness fills the room. She jolts upward in her bed, gripped by immense fear, because the lights here are magical. The ceiling lights in this mansion are all magic powered, so if they turn one off, all the others go out as well. She tries to get off the bed and run after them, desperately reaching for the only light coming from the door, which they are about to close. She pleads with them not to leave her all alone. She is instantly reminded of the time in Kendrick's pocket, and she thinks this feeling. She has felt this before. Just as the door is about to shut, a wolf pokes its head in and lets out a low growl. While she relives the memories of that fateful day of the fire, she runs after them, flapping her wings, startling the maid, who looks worried to see her in this state. She suddenly realizes that she's afraid of the dark. They realize she couldn't tell them because she's still in her beast form. They quickly take her back to her room, turning the lights back on. One of the maids orders Betty to bring a glass of water. The female protagonist finally understands that she's truly afraid of the dark. When she was in Kendrick's pocket, she thought it was just because it was cramped and stuffy. But after going through this, she realized that she's afraid of the tower. However, she's confused because it wasn't like that in her past life. The maids look at her worried and promise her from now on they will ask before turning off the lights. Is that okay? They also offer to sleep with her if she's afraid of sleeping alone. But she tells them no, that is not necessary. She is only scared of the dark, not of being alone. She also thinks and decides there are wolves too, even if Kendrick has ordered them not to harm her. After telling her to call them if she needs anything, they leave. She believes it is probably best for her to stay on guard. As she lies on the bed, the weight of the exhausting day finally hits her, and before she knows it, sleep overtakes her. The next morning, she is greeted by Kendrick, who calls her little one. He asks if she likes the room, mentioning that it was prepared quickly, so he's not sure if it meets her standards. She smiles and tells him it's amazing, then curiously asks why he's here. He smirks and states if she doesn't mind, he would like to introduce his son during dinner. Would that be okay? She is surprised and wonders, is she finally going to meet him? She's running, her wings flapping wildly as she races down the hallway, confused. She was supposed to meet the leader of the wolf clan, but why is she being chased and fleeing from the wolves instead? 2 hours ago, she wondered if she's finally going to meet Arson today. However, Kendrick is unable to find Arson anywhere, and usually he is in his study at this time. He thinks it seems he has gone out for a walk and asks Lynchie, will she wait until he returns? She assures him not to worry, just to do what he needs to do. And waiting is what she does best. He tells her what a good child, and just to play here, he places her on the sofa with a huge stuffed toy. making her think if that is Arson's doll. He then returns to his desk doing his work. She thinks it is a pity that she couldn't meet him, but on the other hand, she's relieved she doesn't have to meet him right away. Rumor has it that he's frail, irritable, and has a vicious personality. She wonders what if he tries to eat her the moment they meet. She remembers Kendrick's words that they will be such good friends, but she wonders if that will really happen. She is suspicious that something bad might happen. Later, she dozes off. Something slightly touches her face. She thinks it's Adele and pleads for just 5 more minutes of sleep. But as the haze lifts, she realizes she's in the Eckhart mansion. There's no way Adele would be here. Slowly opening her eyes, she spots the same stuffed toy from earlier. Screaming on the top of her lungs, she panics, thinking it's real, before realizing it's only the doll. Disoriented, she had mistaken it for a wolf. Looking around in a panic, she notices Kendrick is gone, but then finds a note where he explains he'll be right back after finding his son. She assumes she'll meet him soon, and as she thinks about how he protected her from the wolves yesterday and today, she can't help but reflect on how kind he is. That's when her gaze falls on the window, and she sees a wolf staring right at her. Confused, she wonders, is that real? It looks like it wants to devour her. She tries to convince herself it's just trying to scare her like last time. But then 2 more wolves appear, and she panics. Instinct takes over. She needs to run. That's how she ended up being chased by wolves, and now there are even more of them. The maids rush after her, calling out her name, but she doesn't want anyone following her. In her eyes, they're all enemies, though in reality, they're just worried for her. Her arms are starting to go numb, and she wonders where to run. Her gaze lands on something, and without thinking, she heads in that direction. Outside, a child, disturbed by the noise, wonders what all the commotion is about. He wonders if he's been caught sneaking out of the study. He thinks he needs to get back inside quickly before Ethan has the maids search the entire mansion again. Suddenly, she bursts out of the window and crashes straight into him. Well, into his head. Both of them scream at the top of their lungs, and they tumble to the ground. As she rubs her head, she realizes she's back in her human form. Of all times, she wonders, why did the transformation have to happen now? She looks worried and asks him if he's okay. But he's not okay. He gazes at her like she's the most beautiful thing he has ever seen. She murmurs Arson. The movement their eyes met, she knew instinctively. The ash-gray hair symbolizing the gray wolf family and those deep blue eyes like an ocean. And she knew this boy is the heir to the Eckhart family. In her past life, this boy died because of her father. And just looking at him, he's the spitting image of Kendrick Eckhart. She apologizes to him for sitting on top of him. She did not think that transformation would wear off right then. But he avoids looking into her eyes. She realizes he looks super flustered. However, then she smiles nervously, thinking she would also be shocked if she were him. To him, a strange girl suddenly popped out of thin air. She exclaims he is hurt when her gaze falls on his bruised hand. He casually looks down at them and thinks, looks like he scraped his hand when they fell. She reaches out and grabs his hand, telling him to wait for a moment. Then, using her powers, she instantly heals his wounds. His mouth drops open in shock as he murmurs, noticing that the cut on his palm has vanished. He asks her in a shaky voice, who is she? She smiles nervously and begins to explain, but before she can finish, the butler appears from behind and states, Miss Little Bird. Later, she is sitting across Kendrick on the sofa in his study room and introduces herself as Lynchy Raniero. She states on the day he came to the Raniero mansion, she secretly overheard him talking with father. She further adds he mentioned his family was looking for a marriage partner for Arson. She reveals that is why she asked to come here, because she could be helpful. She thinks, of course, the part about overhearing the conversation is a lie, as she doesn't need to go listen to something she already knows from her past life. She declares she will heal Arson. In exchange, he should let her marry him. He remains looking at her with his neutral face before he declares he wishes to ask her something. He wants to know what she wants in return for healing his son. His only son Arson's condition, the only heir to the Grey Wolf family, worsened day by day. While it was known to the public that he contracted an unnamed disease, Kendrick and a few of his close associates knew the truth. The curse of the Damel land. Damel, the cursed land, had ancient curses placed upon the territory. It was a place where one could lose their life if entered carelessly. That's why the Wolf clan strictly prohibited and controlled access to Damel. However, Arson had the curse of the Damel land without even going near it. Black spots that looked like ancient patterns appeared and disappeared all over his body. Seizures became more frequent, sometimes even a fever or inability to breathe. Nobody could find a way to deal with the cars because this was the first time someone had the curse without stepping onto Damel land. The doctor informed him they needed to further research this. Since this was currently incurable, perhaps it would be better to send his son somewhere for treatment. Kendrick would have sent Arson off if he could, but Arson's was the only heir to the Grey Wolf family. Moreover, he's the only direct heir who strongly inherited the Wolf clan's abilities. If any of the clans were hostile towards the Wolf family, they would surely try to harm Arson if he left for treatment. In the end, Kendrick came up with the idea to negotiate with the rival Raniero family. If the Eckhart's ability was the strongest power of any clan, the Raniero's ability was exactly the opposite. It was said that the children of Raniero with outstanding abilities could cure any disease. On top of that, this healing ability was said to have originated from a certain ancient clan that already disappeared. Since both the curse of Damel and the healing ability of the Bird clan root in ancient times, the Bird clan might be the only thing able to cure Arson's cure. Kendrick also thinks apart from that Lynchie is a very special child, and she is able to use her ability even before her first molting, and there is almost no uncontrolled leakage of her ability. He realizes she probably has one of the strongest abilities even within Raniero. That is why he's very curious if she could really heal Arson without any ulterior moves. However, he is suspicious that she must be a spy for Raniero. He is aware that the head of Raniero clan is more than capable of such a thing. He continues to gaze at her with watchful eyes, sensing that there is another motive behind her actions, while she begins to shift uncomfortably under his scrutiny. Suddenly she blurts out that even if she becomes hideous, he would not abandon her. He was certainly not expecting that. He asks in a shocked voice, "What did she just say?" She gulps in nervousness before starting again that even if she becomes hideous, he should not abandon her and protect her until she comes of age. Lynchie tells him that in exchange for healing Arsene, he should protect her as a part of the Wolf clan. She asks him to swear upon the name of his clan to protect her. Taken aback, he asks her what does she mean. He thinks if she just meant that he should not abandon her. He goes on and questions if that means that Raniero abandoned her. She gets startled as she explains that's not the case. Knowing that she will indeed get abandoned 5 years later, he questions if not that, then did her family neglect her? She panics, stating not yet, being aware that is also something that will happen 5 years in the future. She loses her mind, realizing that to make him understand what she is saying, she has to explain that she came back to the past. She imagines it, telling him that in 5 years the Raniero family is going to torment her, so she escaped in advance. But she then thinks there's no way he's going to accept that so easily. She lets him know she cannot give him the exact reason, but that is all he needs to promise her. She looks at him with huge wide eyes, thinking if that is not possible. But after a moment of pause, he lets out a sigh, asking is that all she's asking for. She nervously replies yes. He rises from his seat and approaches her. Picking her up, he declares he promises that he will protect her until she comes of age. Her eyes filled with tears as she asked him to swear upon the name of Eckhart. He doesn't waste time in swearing upon his family name, and then places a small kiss on her knuckles. She seems completely taken aback by the gesture. As they're leaving, she asks him if his son's treatment will start right away today, but he lets her know not today and wants her to start the treatment tomorrow. Confused, she asks if it is okay to delay. He counters a day won't make a difference, and there is no need to rush. He also guides her not to overdo it and just focus on getting used to the house for now. After all, she'll be living here from now on. After saying that, now they will be busy preparing for her wedding, he departs. She sighs deeply and then cheers, thinking she did it. She admits to herself she got flustered midway and could not speak properly, but everything went well. Besides, she looks at her hand, thinking about the kiss earlier. It is a token of the promise. A kiss on the back of the hand in the Wolf clan signifies a promise from the wolves that will never be broken no matter what. Now that she has received the token of the promise, she doesn't need to worry about being abandoned even after the shedding season ends. A knock on the door startles her. It's butler Ethan, who smiles at her, telling her he has come to escort her. On the way, Ethan asks if she had a good conversation. She replies yes and admits he was so kind and really listened to what she had to say. He then tells her there is someone he would like to introduce to her. This gets her attention. Wide eyes look up at him, asking someone to introduce to her. She wonders who could it be. When she arrives, the place her mouth drops open as she murmurs it is her. A woman bows in front of her and tells her she has been assigned as her personal maid and her name is Betty. Then she realizes she is the maid who took care of her on the first day. But then she realizes something which she didn't when they met for the first time. But this person, even being a wolf, has almost no scent. She also notices she clearly looks like a member of the wolf clan, so how is that even possible? Betty, realizing what she's thinking, points out she's thinking about how she can barely smell any wolf scent on her right. Once again, her mouth drops open in shock. She's flabbergasted because she was definitely only thinking that in her head, while the others think that her thoughts show on her face. Betty reveals she is a hybrid of the wolf and eagle clan, and that her grandmother was from the eagle clan, so she was born as a mutation, and that she has fewer wolf traits compared to others. She reveals certain characteristics like scent are weaker in her. Ethan lets Lynchy know that Betty is the only eagle clan hybrid in the state, and that is why the master of the household ordered her to be assigned as her personal maid, thinking she would feel more comfortable with her. Lynchy cannot help but think Kendrick is more thoughtful than she expected. Betty brightly smiles at her, offering to read her a fairy tale if she would like to. At first she's confused, but then realizes, she's just 7 years old. She whispers that she would like to do something else. Later, she's smiling brightly in the garden, looking around. She asked Betty to show her around the mansion, because if she's going to live here and survive, it's important to learn the layout, and to know where she could fly in case she needs to escape quickly, as knowing all that would give her a peace of mind. Holding her hand in hers, Betty offers if they shall head to the dining room next. But the sound of a crash halts her in her tracks. The little boy looks completely in pain as he gasps for air. She asks Becky what is going on. Becky replies it seems like the young master is very ill as the room over there belongs to him. The shock on her face is very visible as she thinks that noise is coming from Arson's room. And she also finds it strange because he seemed perfectly fine when she met him in the garden earlier. She's hesitant to leave him, thinking shouldn't they at least check on him before they leave. She asks the maid if it would be okay if she meets with Arson. Becky looks shocked. She points out that the young master isn't feeling well today. Lynchy clutches her dress tightly, making a puppy face, explaining that is exactly why she wants to go. He is her friend and he's in pain, right? Becky dramatically gasps, her eyes filling with awe. While she thinks to herself she has other plans as well. When Arson is sick from illness, she will show up with a Tata and heal him. That way she would be also able to prove how important she is. And once Arson is healthy again, everyone in the mansion will be relieved. She thinks 2 birds and 1 stone. Becky smiles, saying shall they head to the young master's room then? On the other hand, Arson is shaking in fury, exploding Ethan that he made it clear that he doesn't want to eat. The butler protests that he has to eat. His condition is already this bad. He insists he is fine and he doesn't want to eat. He demands if they're going to leave or not. A door swings open and she enters smiling at Arson, reminding him that they met earlier and if he remembers her. The maids start gossiping to each other that they heard that the head of the family was bringing a young lady from a new clan, and if it is her. She realizes rumors about her are already spreading around the mansion and wonders if Arson knows about her as well. As she takes a step towards him, he dashes under the blanket. She realizes he feels a bit awkward around her. Arson is actually embarrassed to have been caught throwing a tantrum. She introduces herself and states she is from the new clan. She tells him she came to give him treatment. He lashes out at her that why would someone from the new clan come here and doubts that she might be a spy or something. Becky steps up in her defense, explaining she's someone who's going to be the young master's friend so he shouldn't get this angry. However, Arson is beyond reasoning. He snaps at them saying who said he wanted something like a friend. A tense silence falls over the place and Lynchy stands there quietly and tells them again to leave. When Becky tries to reason with him again, he hides under the blanket, completely shutting her off. Lynch stands there in deep contemplation. She finds it all strange. Arson does not give off the typical resistance one would expect from a wolf. The fact that he doesn't carry the characteristic wolf scent could mean 2 things. First, like Becky, he could be a hybrid due to a mutation. And second, it could mean he's in a very sick state. There is also the possibility that he's intentionally hiding his scent or presence like Lord Kendrick does. However, to her, it does not seem like his abilities have manifested yet. She suddenly yanks away the blanket from him, causing him to hold on to it and angrily demand what she is doing. He also notices how his face is constantly red and he seems weak, even though she is quite frail herself, but he still looks even weaker. She murmurs in a sweet voice that he doesn't want to take his medicine, does he? He looks flustered, his whole face bright red as he asks how does she. She thinks to herself he wants to know how she knows. She thinks it is very simple. One could just look at it to know it. That sticky consistency and the deep green color. There's no way he would want to eat that. She comes closer and murmurs if he just listens to her, he can avoid taking the medicine. He snaps at her that it is all lies. She murmurs in the same sweet voice, "It is true. She never lies." She reminds him how she healed his hand when he hurt it in the garden earlier. And if she had not, they would have put on a ton of steam ointment, right? He says maybe so she smiles brightly, telling him to trust him this time too, and promises to make him better. He is momentarily speechless, gazing at her with wide eyes. Everyone is born with a name, it's just that the time they awaken to how to use it differs. This applies to all people of race blessed by gods with supernatural abilities, and each person expresses their abilities in different ways. For example, her half-brother Gale manifested his abilities through a method of feeding them to others, while her father healed by unleashing his name all at once. Though she is different from those brute methods, she inserts her abilities into other people's bodies, targeting and controlling them. It is more efficient than what her family does. In a war, she could heal up to 4 people in a day. As her fingers entwine with his, he senses the fever melting away. Even the maids, standing by with wide eyes, watch in awe. Her beauty seems almost ethereal, intensified by the magic flowing through her. But as the spell fades, exhaustion sweeps over her, and she sways, drained. She realizes this is very strange. Is it supposed to be this hard? She has never had this much trouble while treating a normal illness. She felt like if she didn't pull her hand away soon, not just her powers, but even her life force would be drained. However, she is determined to heal him, because she believes she came to this mansion just to heal him. She holds his hand again, even though he begs her not to overdo it, and can see that her powers are pouring out like crazy right now. Even Becky and the other maid look taken aback, but she doesn't listen, saying she has to heal him. As she sways, the maids rush to her side. Steadying her, life almost looks drained from her. Arsenic eyes turn wide as he gazes at her, shocked. He wants to know, why did she transform back into a bird? She wants to shoot back. How is she supposed to know that? She's panicking as this cannot be happening. How did she end up as a bird again? She groans in frustration, grumbling at her fate of becoming a beast person once more. Hurling into his palm, she sulks in self-pity. He asks her gently if she's crying. Meanwhile, Becky decides to call for the doctor quickly. He then remarks she is so tiny, and if all the bird's members are this small. Becky gently lets him know that is quite rude to say. However, his argument stands, but she really is tiny, like a mouse bean. Lynchy is grumbling that he called her small twice. She makes adorable noises, wanting to tell him this wolf is so rude. His gaze then falls on her fur. With a finger he touches her on the head, wanting to know how her fur is so fluffy. She wants to complain some more, especially for him not to touch her as he's messing up her feathers. He continues to caress her as she struggles in his grasp, prompting him to warn her to stay still or she will fall. The doctor arrives. Becky introduces him as the family's personal doctor, and he will also check on the condition of the young lady now. She transforms into a fluffy, round ball, her cheeks flushed. She realizes that Doctor is from the Deer clan. Unlike other clans, the Deer clan has a unique flowery aroma. They were not blessed by the gods, though, meaning they could not manifest a name. But even without special abilities, their medical skills were better than Reniero's. Despite Reniero's proficiency in treatments using national skills, the Deer clan were skilled in herbal medicine and various techniques. Living in harmony with nature, they knew plants perfectly, and traded remedies made from the expertise with other clans. She heard it takes over half a year on a waiting list just to buy one of the Deer clan's remedies, for enormous quantities of money. Several tribes desired to employ them as their personal doctors, but she knows they never accepted such offers. Now she is lucky enough to see the deer up close. She still cannot believe she was assigned to this person, and he is their family physician, no less. She wonders how on earth did they manage to hire him. Looking at Arson, he says he heard he had a high fever today. With a smile, he offers to take a look at his condition. Lynchy reveals there's another reason to seek out the Deer clan beside their herbal brews and medical skills. It's probably because of their unique powers. The Deer clan's eyes are able to detect the flow of magical power. They use those eyes to determine the condition of others. He looks confused. Raising his hand, he states this is strange. This makes the butler worry, who questions if there is a problem. He replies that is not the case. His condition has improved significantly, and his symptoms have eased the flow of his supernatural powers table too. All the maids look relieved, especially Becky. Lynchy sighs in relief, thinking it looks like her power works well on Arson too. Ethan says it is probably thanks to the young woman's supernatural talent, pointing out she is the little Ozu bird girl from Reniero, and that she used her power to treat the young master. One of the maids adds that they witnessed it too. She explains the room was filled with a green breeze as the young lady released her powers. And after that, the young master's condition improved immediately. She feels overwhelmed being the center of attention and wants everyone to stop it and to stop praising her. The daughter looks shocked, thinking that a small girl like her. He states she seems to be no more than 10 years old, but she has developed amazing powers and wants to know how did they manage to bring someone like this from Reincarnates. She wants to assert that she arrived on her own 2 feet. He takes her from the butler, declaring that he will examine her for a moment. Under his scrutinizing gaze, she feels her cheeks heat up, questioning whether this can truly be called an examination. By the time he finally releases her, she's transformed into a ripe blushing tomato. He declares, indeed it seems that the young lady's ability was the reason for the young master's improved condition. He goes on to even say if this much progress was made with just one treatment, they can even hope for a full recovery. Everyone shares happiness among them. Even Lynchy thinks she did not know her power was this strong. However, everyone celebrated too early because his next words chill everyone to the bone. He declares continuing this treatment would be too risky. Her eyes dim with worry and anxiety as she wonders if her powers have poisoned Arsene. But she remembers his words clearly, that he said at first. It would be effective. She wonders if she failed despite using all the power she had to heal him. With a sigh, the doctor points out she has just started transforming into a beast, and she's still quite young. No matter how strong her ability is, if she overuses it recklessly, it could cause harm to her body. He also points out that her flight feathers have not fully grown and her body is still too small. He questions curiosity. That wasn't it difficult for her to fly properly. Now that she thinks about it, she realizes every time she tried to fly, the wind made her body sway. The doctor continues that also the flow of her power is unstable and her condition is worse than the young master's. She should not push herself to use her abilities any further. If they assume that the amount of power she used earlier was 100%, from now on it would be best to use only about 20%. She stresses thinking if 20% would even work. The doctor looks at her with a small smile, thinking she must have pushed herself a lot to heal the young master, and what a kind-hearted person she is. He calls her a sweet little chick in his mind. While she feels the creepy sensation that she's being stared at, he cannot help but praise her for the fact that she's able to use her powers at such a young age, and that is truly remarkable. He believes if they take it slow and treat him bit by bit, the young master will improve a lot. However, what is most important for her is to rest well and eat properly. He requests her to rest as much as possible. Now it is her turn to think, how is it possible for someone to be this kind-hearted? She sheds dramatic tears as she thinks this is what she wanted her whole life. She thinks about the wolf clan she has seen so far, and their robotic faces flash through her mind. She ponders, so the other clans are not as harsh as the wolf clan. She thinks that they are so kind. The doctor calls out to Arsene. He states that he heard the reason he had a high fever today was because he snuck out for a walk in the garden. Arsene questions, "Who said that?" The doctor does not respond and smiles. He then tells Lynchy she should refrain from using her powers until her body fully recovers, and he will prescribe some medicine for both of them today, so they should take it and get plenty of rest. Arsene refuses having any more medicine. He thinks that the doctor is a scary person. Meanwhile, Arthur Raniero, Lynchy's father, is filled with anger. He slams the table as he questions if they still have not found her. He tells the attendant that they have mobilized all the knights and still cannot find a single bird. Does that make any sense? The attendant responds that the knights are searching day and night, but she is so small in her beast form that it is hard to spot her. Mentioning that he will order the search party to look again, her father ponders that it has been 2 days since she disappeared. The day she first went missing, her personal maid came to him pale with fear, telling him that there was a problem. He questioned her if she succeeded in transforming and flew out of the window. The maid told him that she looked her in the eye as she flew off, and it was definitely her. She immediately told the others to search for her, but she is so small that they could not figure out where she flew off to. He thought about how she succeeded in transforming as the maid had teary eyes, wondering why was his lord smiling? He then commanded to gather all the knights as they needed to find her. When he first heard that she disappeared, he was simply impressed by her talent. Most children only manage to transform after their first molting, but she succeeded even though she still had 3 years before her first molt. This means her potential is limitless. He thinks it would have been better if she had been born a boy. As in the Raniero family, only men can become hares. But for him, it doesn't matter anymore. If she becomes an eagle after she turns 10, she can support her brother who will become the family head and lead the Raniero clan. He thinks that Raniero children's first transformation is into a small milky-colored form, but after molting they grow and transform into equals. Occasionally there are failed candidates who don't become eagles. But considering her strong abilities, that will not happen to her. As soon as he received the report, he ordered the knights to search the entire area. He did not think she could have flown far in her newly transformed body. But a long time passed as he questions if they still haven't found her. He is told that they have expanded the search to the village, but they still haven't found her. He wondered why, as he thought if she could have been kidnapped in the forest. But then telling himself that no one would dare to kidnap someone from the Raniero clan, at least not in their territory. After all, she bears the family symbol, those milky-colored feathers. The only member of the bird clan who could use abilities were an object of envy and a source of fear. So even though she is small, no one would dare to touch a bird with milky-colored feathers. He then cannot wonder how and where on earth has she disappeared to. Right then, he is informed that they have received a letter from her. He does not know why is that the case, as he wonders if it could be. He notices that the letter is sealed in a familiar envelope with red wax. He understands that it is definitely from that child. A few years ago, he planted a spy to extract information from the Wolf clan. Aside from the recent news that the heir of the Wolf clan has fallen ill, they have not sent any useful information. He finds it a nuisance, thinking he's already busy as it is. But as he begins to read it, his expression turns really shocked. The attendant questions if everything is all right. Letter it is written that this is a message from the Eckhart mansion to Lord Arthur Kendrick has returned to the mansion with Lady Lynchy. It seems that she is unable to properly control her beast transformation due to her unstable powers. He apologizes for asking such a question, but he asks that he send Lady Lynchy there by any chance. It is different from what he heard in the previous report and his younger sibling. Before her father wonders why is she in the Wolf clan's mansion. Even the attendant is shocked, questioning how is that possible because there is no way she could have traveled that far by herself. It cannot be the case unless someone took her. His father wonders if it could be that day. Now that he thinks about it, the day she went missing was 2 days ago. Kendrick visited here 2 days ago as well. He understands that their timings overlap perfectly. He tears the letter apart and commands to contact the temple immediately, stating that they have to bring her back. Meanwhile, in the Wolf clan mansion, she wonders why does her ear feel so itchy. Thinking if someone is talking about her. She is resting peacefully as she thinks it feels really good as instead of worrying about anything else, she should just go to sleep. She knows that Betty Egan prepared a new bed for her to rest well. It was a little bad just for her, and it was made by a famous toy artisan. She tosses around before she wonders how Adel is doing. She thinks on nights when sleep won't come, she cannot help but get lost in thought. Among the things she left behind in the mansion, there was only one thing waiting on her mind. It was Adele. She would ask her to tell her the story from the old days, things that she should have told her to run away to, as had she told her beforehand, she would have definitely tried to stop her, so in that case, she would have had no choice but to stay in the mansion in her previous life. She was abandoned by her family after her first shedding, and Adele was also killed by her father. She really should not have any regrets, no matter how she thinks about it. This was the best choice for the both of them. In her previous life, she started shedding at the age of 9. Until then, she knows she'll have to prove her worth by healing Arson as much as she can. To do that, she needs to focus on her recovery right now. She then thinks as if something is on her stomach. It is a red fur dot. She wonders if she is seeing things as she becomes really frightened. Not believe what is happening, as all she knows is that shedding usually begins around the age of 10, and that applies to any race. She also finished her first shooting at 10 in her previous life, but she wonders if her red fur really grew this fast. She cannot help but sweat because of fear. She thinks no matter how quickly she used her powers, the timing for shedding should not change. She realizes that she definitely did not see it wrong and begins to panic. She starts crying knowing that she has been barely here with the Wolf clan, and already the cursed feathers are growing. She is aware that if she gets caught, she might be abandoned. Kendrick swore to protect her, and the Eckhart Wolf clan likes her. But she cannot let them find out about the curse yet. She decides to do something. She's trembling as she pulls out the red fur. After realizing it is out, she feels the pain of it. She is aware that she must hide it carefully so that no one can see it, and to do that she goes out of the window and drops it from there. She thinks it is probably just a mistake in the fur, thus there's no way shedding has already started. She thinks of it as just a dream and tries to put herself to sleep thinking it is just a slightly bad dream. A new day begins as the maid questions if something is wrong. She asks Betty, so she's here. She seems very down, but he panics, telling her that her tail is drooping, and that she seems down, questioning if it is because she did not get her snack. She is aware that she is feeling a little down. She is still worried about not being able to return to her human form, as ever since she plucked those red feathers from her body last night, she has been feeling anxious. The earlier the molting season starts, the faster the growth. While it is good that she will become more adept at handling her abilities as her body matures, at this rate she might molt before she is even 10. She is aware that of course Kendrick promised not to abandon her, but adults always lie, so she should not trust them. She thinks that she will have to be even more careful than before. Arson goes to her and asks her what is she doing there. He calls her an idiot, telling her to not sit there as it is dirty. This causes her to be frustrated. She checks her feet. She sees that it is not dirty. He realizes that it is actually clean but still tells her to come down quickly as he is hungry. She thinks that he is unbelievable, but then wonders if it is meal time already. As they are eating together, Arson looks at the soup and questions what is in this soup today. He tells the maid that he told her he does not want carrots. He hates anything that has carrots in it. The male tells him that she will give him pears next time, so he should just try it for today. He still complains as she wonders why is not he eating the carrots. She tells him to not be picky. He asks her if she wants him to eat this, and she responds yes. She calls him a picky eater. She thinks from what she has observed of him lately, not only does he turn down carrots, but also avoids all vegetables like green onions and only eats meat. She thinks that it seems like he hates vegetables, knowing that they are probably letting him eat only what he likes to avoid causing him stress, but she knows that being a picky eater is the worst eating habit. She is aware that he is already weak and being picky cannot be good for his health. The maid asks him if he will really not eat it when the young lady is asking so nicely as well. He responds no, he will not eat it. Thinks that he is becoming all-tempered because they are being too lenient on him. She calls him a stubborn brat. She thinks it is his loss if he does not eat. The maid notice says that she eats her vegetables so well she has never seen someone eat such a variety of vegetables. Lynchy, that is because she would get scolded if she was picky. It is no big deal for her. The maids find her really adorable. She looks at her Arson and notices his expression. She wonders if he is jealous because she was praised. She thinks if she should tease him a bit more. She begins to eat more, thinking he cannot eat this stuff, can he? He is shocked seeing her eating so much of the carrot. She even says it is so delicious, and that makes him want to eating carrot. After thinking for a little, he takes a bite of it, causing the maids to be shocked. The maids are stunned seeing him eat, realizing that he ate a carrot. Lynchy looks at the maid's expression, thinking if it is really that surprising. She wonders how long has he been avoiding vegetables for them to react like this. He asks Lynchy if she saw how he can also eat carrots now, and she's not the only one who can eat them. She thinks that is not enough to impress her. She picks up another vegetable, to which he becomes shocked. He thinks that she's not going to eat that hideous fruit that makes weird liquid burst in her mouth. Is she? She finds it a very bizarre way to describe it. She knows it is not a fruit, but a vegetable. After eating it, she wonders if he can eat this too. He looks at the maids as the maid wishes if only he could also eat tomatoes, as they never knew there were children who could eat tomatoes. The maids compliment Lynchy, stating that she is truly amazing. This makes him try eating tomato too. He takes a bite of it. The maids tell him that he is doing amazing too. Even she finds it pretty good. From that day on, he started competing with her by copying everything she did. When she ate vegetables, he ate vegetables too. When she took a bath, he took a thorough bath as well. He thinks to himself that he has only fixed a few bad habits, but he looks so much healthier now. Lynchy thinks that her role was to heal him. Even if she could cure all his illnesses with her ability when she becomes an adult, if his body does not become completely healthy, it might be pointless. She stares at him completely, which makes him wonder what is with that look. She is determined as she decides that she needs to ensure that he is completely healthy before she leaves the mansion. She is aware that even when she is gone, she cannot let him get sick, so she's going to make sure he's healthy before then. Then she starts thinking about after she is gone. She wonders when she leaves Eckhart, is she expected to leave bare-handed? She wonders if she's in big trouble. She sits and thinks carefully, wondering what should she do? She is aware that when people divorce, they typically receive an important compensation payment. But if she ends up marrying him, the Wolves will have to pay a good amount of money to Reincarnates, despite having the payment from a divorce. That is either way a huge profit. She thinks that she can already picture Mr. Butler scolding Lord Kendrick as why did not he negotiate for that river in advance. So after the contract marriage ends, the money she will get is probably nothing. Since they have already paid a huge price, they probably won't give her anything more. She guessed that she needs to save up some emergency funds, as if she started saving bit by bit from now. She should have enough when they divorce. She needs to look for a secure hiding place for her emergency supplies. She is aware that the maids clean every nook and cranny of her room every day, so there's no place to hide it there. She knows that Betty told her there are lots of empty rooms on the second floor of the mansion. She decides to start with the second floor. She looks around, making sure that no one is there. She thinks that she needs to search for a room in the back where nobody goes. She is sure she will find a good spot to hide her emergency funds there. She flies around thinking there are not as many good hiding spots as she thought, wondering if she should go further in. She then looks at her place, realizing this is the reception room on the second floor. She was told this place was not being used, but she wonders why does she hear voices coming from inside this room. She wonders if someone is in there and tries to hear. She realizes that she can hear them. A person asks the other if that is why they came here. She knows this voice is of Lord Kendrick, wondering if he's with a guest. She thinks he seems to be quite angry. The other person states they have no choice for this matter, as Raniero has directly requested an adjustment, so they cannot just ignore it, so he should please attend. This causes her to be totally shocked. She wonders why is Raniero involved in this. Kendrick questions the other person if he did not make it clear already. She was not brought here by force, but she came with her own free will. The person tells him that they believe him, of course, but since Raniero has made an official request, they have no choice but to verify. He mentions about Temple of Nut, causing her to worry. She thinks that this is troublesome as she wonders if he's talking about a temple. The Temple of Nut. The temple is dedicated to the god of Nut and is in charge of 9 relics. The temple only intervenes when something goes wrong with the shrine itself, or when the safety of the sacred relics is being threatened. But Raniero asked for the Temple of Meditation. She wonders if it could be Father. The person tells him that the temple cannot approve of an arranged marriage without Raniero's consent, therefore, it seems that he will have to return Raniero's child. She thinks that is absurd thinking. She assumed the redhead Glenn would resolve this on their own. But the temple? She begins to worry, thinking that she hates this. She slips and falls down, worrying so much and knowing that this cannot be happening. She knows that her father is not desperate to get her back, but as time passes and they fall into the same old routines, he'll end up abandoning her again. This time, it might even happen as soon as she returns, just like in her past life. Because she already has. Kendrick hears the voice and opens the door, questioning who is it? Lynchy is in her human forms as he notices her. He looks at her and tells her that her beast transformation has worn off. He questions what was she doing here. She smiles as she realizes this is bad, wondering why did her beast transformation had to wear off right now. She mentions that she was not trying to eavesdrop, she was simply passing by. He questions just happened to pass by, but there should not be any reason for starters to pass by from here. Besides, he asks her where is her maid. She knows that she sneaked out, so it is not Betty's fault, thinking what should she do. The person calls out to her telling her so she is the baby bird from the Raniero family. She thinks about that unfamiliar voice she heard in the room and turns around to find the priest. The priest smiles at her and introduces himself as a Tran. She says hello to him back, but she seems scared. She grabs onto Kendrick, telling herself that it is Oak as he is here with her. He mentions that they do not have any need to introduce themselves as they won't be seeing each other again. He asks the priest to leave. The priest asks him why would he say something so hurtful. They think that they will meet again soon. He also tells her that she seems to be quite shy, but how did she come all the way here? Kendrick glares at him before he picks her up, telling the priest to quit with his useless chatter. Kendrick tells her that even though her beast transformation has worn off, she is still as light as a feather. He tells the priest that he won't attend the temple, so he should please leave as he thinks that the bird got scared. She is glad that the priest is leaving now. She looks at the priest as the priest mentions that he will take his leave and says goodbye to her. After a while, she thinks it feels a bit odd since they've not met in a long time as she was in her beast form, so it's a little strange after all. Kendrick asks her if she just transformed. She tells yes as he states that is good, and they should call Hearn as it is better to get her examined and rest a bit. She wonders why did not he ask why she was eavesdropping. She apologizes to him, telling him that she did not mean to eavesdrop. He questions if she is referring to what they talked about earlier. He states that he wants to know how much she heard. She responds that just a little as he questions, so how much did she hear? She states she heard that he needs to send her back. He responds that means she heard everything, but she tells him no, it is just a tiny bit. He tells her they will talk about it later as she needs to rest for now. She notices it is her room and wonders he brought her hair. Betty finds her and goes to her, asking her where she has been, and realizes that her beast transformation has waned off. Kendrick tells her that she was in front of the reception room. He tells Betty to calm the kid as it seems she was kind of startled and let her meet Hearn. But he becomes shocked, knowing that she was startled. Kendrick tells her that he is leaving now and she must be uncomfortable in those clothes, so she should get her change into her pajamas. After some time, Betty changes her clothes and asks her if she is comfortable now. She responds yes, she is, and thanks Betty. Betty informs her that she has also called the doctor and he will be here soon, so she should please rest while she waits for him. Betty mentions that she's glad her beast transformation has worn off and asks her why she went to the reception room. She knows she cannot talk about the emergency funds and wonders how should she put this. She states she was just going out for a walk, but she got lost. Betty asks her if she still does not know how the mansion is designed, stating that she will get used to it as she leaves here, and asks her if she would like to take another tour of the mansion tomorrow. Lynchy is glad that she believes her. She thinks that Betty is really kind. She ponders that perhaps her goal is to make sure that she will not get lost again. Right then Arson appears and calls out to her.